Hello, and welcome back to History's Hidden Weird, the podcast where the past gets a little stranger. I'm your host, Quinn Strange, and today's episode, well, it's literally lit. Because today, we're talking about the time the River Thames caught fire. Yes, that River Thames. London's iconic, winding artery. The one with the London Eye, the Tower Bridge, the murky brown waters tourists politely pretend not to notice. That river. On fire. You might think rivers don't burn. You'd be wrong. Because not only did it happen once, it happened multiple times. And if you're imagining something biblical, like fire and brimstone raining from the skies, hold that thought. The real story is way weirder, and frankly, a bit disgusting. Let's dive in. To understand how a river, especially one as wide as the Thames, could possibly burst into flames, we need to start with the basics. For most of London's history, the Thames wasn't just a river. It was a sewer, a dump, a slaughterhouse drain, and a chemical spill site all rolled into one. It was the city's bloodstream, and Londoners injected all sorts of horrors into it. By the 17th century, the Thames had gone from a thriving waterway to a toxic soup of human waste, industrial runoff, and dead animals. There were even complaints of whole dead cattle floating down the river. Now fast forward to the 19th century. The population had exploded, and so had the pollution. Imagine factories belching out black smoke, emptying vats of chemicals straight into the river. Breweries dumping waste from beer production. Gasworks releasing coal tar. And all of this swirling in a slow-moving river with little to no filtration. By 1858, the stench got so bad that it literally shut down Parliament. I'm not exaggerating. That summer became known as the Great Stink. Lawmakers had to drape curtains soaked in chlorine around the House of Commons just to get through the day without vomiting. So yeah, by this point, the Thames wasn't just dirty. It was chemically unstable. Which brings us to our flaming river. The most notorious incident occurred in July of 1957. Picture this, it's a warm evening, the sun is low, and in the district of Brentford, where the River Brent flows into the Thames, a group of people suddenly see flames erupting from the surface of the water. Bright orange fire danced along the river, licking the air and sending acrid black smoke into the sky. People panicked. Was it sabotage? A gas leak? The apocalypse? Turns out, it was oil. There had been an illegal discharge from a nearby oil facility. The river had become coated in a film of petroleum products, highly flammable stuff. All it took was a spark, possibly from a discarded cigarette or nearby industrial machinery, and boom. The water ignited. Firefighters had to wade into the oily flames to extinguish them. Several people were injured. Wildlife in the area was devastated. And Londoners were reminded, again, that their iconic river wasn't as innocent as it looked. But here's the kicker, this wasn't even the first time. In fact, there are documented fires on the Thames going back to the 19th century. In 1833, part of the river near a gasworks exploded after a buildup of coal gas beneath the water's surface ignited. The explosion shattered windows and sent fireballs into the air. Imagine walking along the river and suddenly being blown backwards by an invisible firebomb. In the 1870s, there were incidents where barges carrying petroleum products ignited on the Thames, setting not just the boats but the river itself ablaze. And as recently as the 1970s, sections of the Thames, particularly near heavily industrialized zones, would experience smaller fires caused by chemical discharge and flammable runoff. So how exactly does a river catch fire? Well, it's not the water itself, it's what's on the water. In all these cases, flammable substances like oil, tar, or gas were dumped into the river. When those substances floated to the surface and spread out into a thin film, they created a kind of liquid fuse, just waiting for the right spark. London's rapid industrial growth, poor environmental regulations, and a general lack of sewage treatment meant the river was a perfect storm of flammability. Combine that with heat, low water flow, and open flames nearby, like those used in shipyards or by passing boatmen, and you've got a river ready to blow. In short, you don't need lava to burn a river. Just enough greed, neglect, and garbage. The good news is that things did get better. The Thames is now considered one of the cleanest rivers running through a major city. That's thanks to decades of environmental reform, improved sewage treatment, and legislation banning chemical dumping. But that doesn't mean it's pristine. The Thames still struggles with microplastics, runoff from roads, and even occasional raw sewage overflows when heavy rains overwhelm the system. And while it hasn't caught fire in recent decades, that's less a guarantee and more a hopeful trend. And here's a weird twist. The River Thames isn't even the most famous burning river. That title goes to the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland, Ohio, which caught fire so many times that it sparked, pun fully intended, the modern environmental movement in the U.S. But the Thames? The Thames burned with classic British flair. Quietly. Grimly. And with a very polite amount of public horror. So, next time you stand on a bridge in London and look down at the Thames, think about it. Beneath that tourist-friendly surface lies a long, murky history. A river that once burned with the waste of progress. A waterway that mirrored the best and worst of a growing empire. And remember, rivers aren't just nature. They're reflections of who we are. And sometimes, who we'd rather forget we were. This has been History's Hidden Weird. I'm Quinn Strange. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. Stay kind. Stay wonderfully weird.